This was actually on Halloween morning one year. I lived in a small apartment with an open floor plan where you could see the entire apartment from the kitchen. I was in the kitchen packing my lunch to take to work when the TV turned on by itself. Volume on full blast to some static channel that kept cutting in and out. I was nowhere near the remote or the TV and had no other people or animals living with me who could have done it accidentally. Probably not the scariest thing I've ever experienced, but it definitely freaked me out at the time. It had never happened before, and it hasn't happened since. I played piano in a dark and empty auditorium way back in the day. When I was finished, someone softly clapped for me. Sort of sounded like it was coming from everywhere, but just one person. I never saw them, and the auditorium was locked except for the door that I came in. In middle school, my friend was in a church youth group, and they often had these overnights at the church that he would invite me to, and they were actually tons of fun. Towards the end of the night, the guy who ran it would let us play manhunt in the entire church area. We turned literally every light in the whole place off, and we all had tiny flashlights. It was spooky but so much fun. One of these nights when we were playing, we decided to hide in a closet in the nursery. We hid there for about 10 minutes, and out of nowhere we heard a baby crying. We got spooked and got the heck out of there. In the morning we went back to the nursery to see what could have caused it. We figured it was one of those toy baby dolls that would cry, but we found nothing. Still spooks me to this day, but I would give anything to relive it because I love the paranormal. When I was 12, my mother and I were watching TV in her bedroom. It was one of those really stuffy summer evenings. Stating the obvious, I said aloud, "It is so hot in here." Immediately, the fan that was sitting on the dresser 5 feet away turned on. The switch couldn't really be flipped on by accident. It was pretty sticky and required a lot of force to go from off to on. I can't really explain how that happened, but I like to think it was a friendly ghost. A few weeks after my mom gave birth to me, she went to me in the middle of the night because I was crying. When she went in the room, she saw a dark figure of a man who she thought was my dad holding me and decided to go back to sleep. In the morning, she thanked my dad for taking care of me. As it turns out, my dad was not even awake then, and nobody else was in the apartment. It gets worse later on in life. Not only me, but my sister, cousins, and friends have all seen it somewhere in our home, all in separate accounts, and we don't normally tell people about it unless they've seen it, and it follows us wherever we move to, and at this point, me and my family have all learned to ignore it, though we all know it's still there. While in university, I loved finding snakes. So a friend from herpetology club showed me this road that he would cruise for snakes. Cruising is when you drive slowly down old back roads after dark looking for snakes that had slithered onto the warmer road to heat up. The road we took was about 4 miles and had around 4 houses on it entirely. We had taken a few laps on the road and we were making our final pass. There are 2 houses near the beginning of the road, one at the end and one near the middle. Well, we were getting close to the center house when we saw movement on the left side of the road. There are a lot of animals on this road, so we aren't surprised to see this. However, what shoots out is this kid, probably around 8 or 9 in torn blue jeans and a ripped dark t-shirt. He takes one look at us and his face is a mix of fear and pain. He looked back really quickly from where he'd come out of the grass and booked it across the road. The guy I'm with gets out of the car chasing to see if he's alright, and I pull the car up to the point where the boy went into the woods. I'm starting to get out of the car when my friend walks quickly back from the trail and says, "Let's go, now!" We hop into the car and tear out of there. He says there's a graveyard about 10 yards in the woods where there are 5 gravestones with the same death date. They all have the same last name, and one was a boy who was 9. We never came back the rest of the summer to that road. The next year, when my friend had graduated, I took my girlfriend out to the road. We had gone early to try and find different types of snakes. We got to the house near the graveyard and there's 3 men doing some yard work. I rolled down the window, explained what I was doing, and asked them about the graveyard. Apparently their dad's brother's family had all died when their space heater caught fire around 20 years ago. I kept pushing and asking about it, and they told me the firemen or whoever does it had found all the bodies in the rubble except for the youngest son, but they assumed he was too far burned. I asked if they had a little brother, and the 6'4", 250-pound man said he was the youngest. When I gave the description of the kid I saw, they all went white. They have all individually seen the kid I was talking about, and he always runs to the gravesite. I have never been down that road again. A good friend of mine, while doing his rounds as a young intern, he is now a neurosurgeon, he had just looked in on one of the dying patients. After making the patient comfortable, he exited the room, sat on a nearby chair to write his report. After a few minutes, he looked up and saw this patient walking down the hallway. He called to the woman, but there was no response. As he stood up to walk after her, she disappeared. He quickly walked towards the patient's room and saw a light under the door. When he opened the door, it was completely dark in the room. So he turned on the nightlight, went over to the patient and felt for her pulse. She had died. He swears to this experience. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. But I've been just plain creepy, and I'll catch you in the next video.